Refugee advocates are concerned about the slow implementation of a deal between Australia and New Zealand to resettle people detained by Canberra on Nauru for trying to enter Australia illegally by boat. The New Zealand government has only managed to fill 31 spots out of its 150 a year refugee quota under the New Zealand-Australia resettlement arrangement. With year one of the 3-year deal ending next month, refugee advocates say the process is far too slow. Lydia Lewis has the story.
Immigration New Zealand's Andrew Lockhart denies it's dragging the chain. So do you admit that this process is drawn out?
No, I don't. No, I don't. It's not. It's very clear that we're working as hard as we can to get people here that are part of this arrangement.
But one refugee who did not want to go on the record says he's been held in detention for almost 10 years and is now locked in a hotel room in Australia, waiting for news on his application to finally settle in Aotearoa. His ordeal has severely impacted his mental health.
In Australia, to the refugees themselves, it's just impossible to understand why there is any delay. They're found to be refugees. New Zealanders said they would take 150 a year. What possible delay could there be?
That was Ian Rintoul, who's been advocating for refugees for many years.
We're talking about refugees people who've been found to be refugees, in some cases, 8 to 9 years ago. They've been scrupulously investigated.
The NZAUS deal includes those physically in Nauru and those who were previously detained on Manus Island in Papua New Guinea or Nauru, but have since been moved to detention in Australia. The head of Immigration New Zealand, Alison McDonald, says her team is working as quickly as it can to get people to Aotearoa.
The first year ends in July. We won't have 150 because we've just started the work, but we will have 450 in over the 3-year period.
Both Refugee Action Coalition and Amnesty International say the process is far too slow, given the refugees have already been scrutinised to the hilt while held in detention by Australia. Mr Rintoul says with the process taking 6 to 9 months depending on the complexity of the case and the circumstances, refugees are left in limbo.
They've certainly been slow processing permanent protection claims in Australia, but there would seem to be no impediment whatsoever for 150 people to come from either Australia or Nauru, to New Zealand. So I think someone's got some explaining to do. If New Zealand can't understand why there's a delay, then no one understands.
He says it's not good enough.
What we do know is that the quota this year is not going to be met, and someone needs to take responsibility for that.
INZ Refugee and Migrant Services Acting General Manager Andrew Lockhart says 248 people, both from Nauru and Australia, had been referred to Immigration New Zealand as of May 29.
We are gaining momentum, and I don't think 248 people is a small number at the end of the day, but it will take a while for them to flow through to numbers are actually arriving in New Zealand, but you'll see that increase as we move into the next year.
Mr Rintoul says one positive is the spots that are not filled this year will roll over to next year, but next year is a long way away. Amnesty International Australia's Graham Thom has described the cautious approach the New Zealand government is taking as very sad.
That process could have been expedited, but New Zealand is taking a very pragmatic approach to its resettlement program. It doesn't want to give any indication that these refugees are any different from any of the others who are being resettled. I think they've been very clear on that. So sadly, that has meant all of these individuals have had to go through the same level of interviews, medical checks, security checks, the usual box ticking that all other refugees have to go through if they're going to be resettled to New Zealand. And that has meant, unfortunately, we've only seen very few arrive, despite the fact that we've known exactly who these people are for the last 10 years.
While the focus is on resettling refugees eligible under the NZAUS agreement, Mr Thom says it's important not to forget there are also refugees trapped in PNG.
Thankfully, countries like New Zealand have still stepped up to make sure that there is a solution, at least for some of the men who are trapped in PNG.
Refugees who were also on Manus Island and are now in Australia can be resettled under the AUS-NZ agreement, but the 84 who are still in PNG are not included in the deal.